So I have four kiddos, and I think a lot about parenthood and boundary setting. And I used to think of boundaries as physically holding people off. So I would set a boundary with one person and physically hold them back, and then another person and hold them back, and another person and hold them back. And it anyway, it was a lot of energy that I was using to keep people away. And then one day it just clicked for me, and I realized that I could set a firm boundary and just say no one crosses this line, and it's a whole lot easier to maintain. So instead of saying, Fred, you're not going to cuss at me, Josh, you're not going to cuss at me, Jimmy, you're not going to cuss at me, Lisa, you're not going to cuss at me, instead I would just say no one's going to cuss at me. And anybody who crosses that line, I can either choose to say, don't cross that line again, here's the boundary, and the person can say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that was a boundary, let me just back up and we'll continue to maintain the friendship or whatever. Or they can cross that boundary again, and I can say, you know what, I'm done, and walk away and be done with it. Now, what I've realized in the past few weeks is that my sons are not getting the example of being able to set a boundary. So yesterday, my oldest son, his best friend that he's had for 3 years now, since we moved to where we are, threw a ball at my son's back as he was walking up a hill. And then he threw it at the back of my son's head. And my son just kind of laughed it off. And I talked to him afterwards and I said, hey, if mom had done that, if I had done that to you, what would you have done? He said, I would have gotten mad. So what if your brother had done it? I would have gotten mad. I would have punched him in the face, which he wouldn't have, but he's all bluster right now because he's 8. And I said, well, what if somebody who wasn't your friend had done it? He said, I would have, been so mad. I would have just punched him or I would have kicked him. And I said, sure you would. But the fact that your friend did it, what does that mean to you? And he said, well, he's my friend. It was funny. I said, is it funny if anybody else does it? He said, no. And I said, well, why is it funny when a friend does something harmful? He said, it's not. But he still couldn't connect those two messages. And how often do we have that same thing happen as grown-ups where we've got a friend who just says those mean, spiteful things, or a husband or a wife that says those really spiteful things, and we don't set a boundary because they are the person that is supposed to have our back, and we just let them get away with it. So I'd encourage you today to think about what those boundaries mean to you, and if you can set one in a healthy way that allows you to have the same standard for everybody. Nobody's going to throw a ball at the back of my head because it's not funny. Nobody is going to call me names because it is not funny. And it's not something I appreciate. I hear people all the time say, oh, this is just an inside joke my spouse and I have. Or, oh, this is just an inside joke. Oh, this is, my friend can throw a ball at the back of my head because it's funny when they do it. No, it's really not. And there's really no reason for it. So I'd encourage you to look at that and encourage you to think about what you're teaching your kids. And maybe it'd be good to set some boundaries for yourself too. I know I still have a lot to grow into. Have a good night.